Hello, beautiful souls. I am Valeria Maritza at Healing Through You. I am an infinite being of light, and so are you. This is part two of the interview with Craig Merriweather. He is a fabulous, quite fascinating hypnotherapist, therapist, and we did not get to speak about past life regressions, which I really wanted to get into because we ran out of time. And so I'm bringing him in today again so that we can talk all about that. So, welcome again, Craig. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful, Valeria. I appreciate you taking the time to do this because this is my favorite subject. I mentioned at the beginning of part one, this is my
Uh-huh.
favorite topic, and then we got so into the rabbit hole of hypnotherapy that we ran out of time. So I'm thrilled to be able to come back and talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, everything you talked about hypnotherapist was so fascinating and eye-opening because I also had a misconception before I started going down my own rabbit hole about hypnotherapists, thinking that, oh, you give your power away and you don't know what you're doing, and the hypnotherapist can do whatever they want with you. And you were so gracious to explain that, no, you're in charge the whole time. You don't
Yeah,
do anything you don't want to. You only do things that you want to. So that was very eye-opening. If you guys didn't
yeah.
see it, go back to part one. I'll also put a link here for you guys to do it. So let's get into past life regressions. I have been so fascinated about this. Some of the work that I do in the Akasha Records is going back into past lives. It's different than past life regression, I'm completely
Right.
assuming. Um, so tell us a little bit about that and how'd you get into that?
Well, it's always fascinated me. Just a real quick um, uh, story about me and my life. I was born into the Episcopal Church, just probably because it was 5 blocks away from my house growing up. If it was a Methodist church or a Lutheran church or something else, we probably would have gone to that church, but it was up the street from us. And so we went to the Episcopal church, and that's where I had my friends. That was a big part of my life. This is the 1970s, growing up as a kid. And so there's not much to do and other than, hanging out with friends, and my friends were at the church. I started going to a Baptist run school from 6th grade to 12th grade, which are kind of very divergent philosophies, actually, strangely enough. And so it was a lot of Christianity, a lot of religion, but to a certain extent in the my teenage years, starting the early 1980s, I felt a more being drawn spiritually. I actually started going to this charismatic group because that's all I knew. All I knew was church activities. Again, this is the 1980s. There's no internet. Uh, you know, Usually the bookstore you went to didn't have a very big new agey section or anything like that. And so there wasn't much information out there. It, as I graduated high school, my friends, your friends just part and they move away. They move to different states to go to different schools and things. And most of my friends were kind of older than me anyway at the church, a year older. So they graduated a year before me. And so I kind of just drifted away. Wasn't appealing. I'd been around the church for 18, 19, 20 years. And it was by moving up to Santa Cruz, California, to go to UC Santa Cruz, the school there, the university there, that my eyes was open. This was like late 80s, 1990, because there's so many different cultures. There's so much different ethnicities. There's so much different people that you can interact with. I was pretty isolated where I was, and by moving to this small little town that was so close to San Francisco and so close to San Jose, um, I learned more about different kinds of music, which led to different kinds of cultures and their beliefs and their philosophies and their spirituality. And so I started studying all these everything. I tried Zen Buddhism and I tried all these different things. I tried Sufism and I learned about all these different things. And I realized religion wasn't so much what I was craving. It was this connecting with, if you want to call it God or the universe or that ultimate energy of all things. And I was trying these different methodologies to achieve that. And it was a great time of exploration, great time of discovery. There was some great books in downtown Santa Cruz at that time. I think I counted there was something like 9 bookstores just in this like 3, 4 block area, something like 16 different movie screens, most of which were art house movies. So it was a great time of culture and learning different philosophies and spirituality. And and so I've always been craving that, reading, discovering, practicing various techniques and rituals and ceremony. And I talked a lot about my story in part one, so I won't get too much into that. Other than when I decided to train to become a hypnotherapist, it was very important to me to get great training. The unfortunate thing about hypnotherapy nowadays is you can just do a handful of hours and call yourself a hypnotherapist. I'm actually doing a course right now as continuing education. There's a couple of things in this course I want to learn about, but it's a 20-hour course, and you're allowed to call yourself a certified transformational hypnotherapist at the end of it after 20 hours. The school I went to was the Hypnotherapy Academy of America. It's Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it's the premier training facility for hypnotherapy in America. People from all over the world come to this school. It's 500 hours total. It's 2.5 months, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So it's not even like a college class where it's like a history class on Tuesdays and Thursdays for an hour. This is 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday for 2.5 months. Plus, there's study groups afterwards. There's homework on the weekends. Or you're getting together and practicing. And so you sit in a classroom, 25, 30 other people, a real classroom. You're there in person, and you learn about the scientific validity behind these processes and techniques. You may learn about a specific technique, see it demonstrated in front of class, and then you break up into small groups and you work with each other. So the first uh, 6 weeks, the first 3 modules. So 2 weeks is one module. So the first 3 modules, first 6 weeks is your clinical hypnotherapy training, and you get certified as a clinical hypnotherapist with 300 hours of training. The fourth uh, module is medical hypnosis, and that's pain control, healing acceleration, immune system boosting, that kind of thing. That's 2 weeks. That's module four. That's another 100 hours. And the last module, module five, and the reason why I wanted to come to this school is 100 hours in training of past life regression, natal regression, spirit world regression, connecting with guys, that kind of thing. 100 hours of just that aspect of it. And so just training in past life regression at the school is like, twice as much as what most people get just to become a hypnotherapist. And so it's an extraordinary school, it's extraordinary education. I highly recommend if anybody's interested in training as a hypnotherapist to look into the school and see if it's right for them. But that's what really excited me about this school was that aspect of it, the past life regression and natal regression. And it's interesting that they put it at the end because they want you to have this foundation of this work and working with people uh, in order to get to the deeper levels of moving into spirit world and past life regression. And even since then, I've done so much training with different people and researching different methodologies. And for me, what's important about this work of past life regression, the way I do it, I know there's a lot of people out there that have come to me even and say, I've gone to a past life regressionist or maybe a Akashic Records reader, and you're kind of told it's like because that's the session that you're doing.
Yeah.
You're being told, like, well, I'm seeing in your records that, or I'm seeing in your past lives that this happened, this happened, this happened. Uh, the past life regression that I do is you experience it yourself. And again, I'm more of, like I was speaking about in part one, I'm more of this facilitator of your experience. But what is most important and priority number one in this work of past life regression that I do is the healing in this current life. Now, you may come to a past life regression because you're just wanting to discover something, you're looking for some insights, maybe about people in your life, and that's fine too. But if you're coming because you have this chronic anger, this chronic anxiety, you can't pinpoint where it came from, and your intuition is telling you it's a past life. You read some books by Brian Weiss, you know, Many Lives, Many Masters. You've read some other books, and your intuition is telling you, yeah, after 10 years of trying to work on this anger, this anxiety, I think it's a past life. We're going to work on the anxiety and anger, maybe through going through a past life and up into the spirit world. But the important part of it is the healing in this life. The reason this is so important to me is because I've run into very many people who have gone to, having people tell them that they have a problem, and then just like, and there you go, you got a problem. There's no healing. In fact, Tim Zimmerman, who's one of the co-directors at the Hypnotherapy Academy I went to, told the story of when he was first starting out as a hypnotherapist back in the late 80s. A friend of his, he was living in Santa Fe, New Mexico at the time. A friend of his said that, yeah, my ex-wife went up to Taos once to get a past life regression. And they were doing this past life regression, and it was this past life about Middle Ages or something, medieval time. And she kind of had was trying to get better treatment for the people, the common people. The higher ups, the authority figures didn't like that. She kind of had a big mouth. And so they threw her in prison. And her past life was that she was slowly starved to death and tortured. And because they wanted to make an example of her, to just keep in line, don't rock the boat. And common people have no rights. And so they slowly uh, starved her to death, tortured her to death, and her jailer, and the person who was doing this to her, was her husband in this current life. And that's why they got divorced. And there's a divorce decree in Santa Fe, New Mexico that you can look up. And I'm sure there was other issues around that relationship. But the final straw, and what's actually written in a divorce decree somewhere in the records of the county building in Santa Fe, New Mexico, is that this divorce is happening because in a past life he tortured me to death. And so there's no healing around
That's
that. It
not
was just a
healing.
story. Yeah, there's no healing there. If that person knew about how to heal and how to help that person heal, that relationship, I don't know, but a good chance is that relationship could have been saved.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
so,
Because you get to see the purpose of that happening.
yeah.
And yeah. Oh, wow.
And
That's
so And so that actually caused a lot of damage. It caused a lot of even more hurt and pain. And so that's why in the Hypnotherapy Academy, you need to learn how to heal or help others heal, I guess is the way I should have said that. You need to learn how to use this to heal other people, help them heal. Then you do this past life regression. And as your foundation is helping people heal, now the foundation of past life regression is to help people heal. And so that's key number one is the healing that needs to happen. Again, you can use this work for discovery, insights. Let's go back to meeting your greatest spiritual teacher, which maybe wasn't Siddhartha or the Buddha or Jesus or Mary Magdalene or whoever. It may have been a small time person that maybe you haven't heard of in the history books. Maybe you have like Craig Merriweather. My name, you don't get more Great British than that. You don't get more English or Scottish than that. So that's my heritage. That's my ancestry. Yet I have a great love of the Middle East and India and North Africa. Why? My heritage has nothing to do with that. So a past life may look at why do I have a great interest in Morocco or North Africa? Uh, uh, other people in your life, maybe identifying certain people. Have I lived multiple lives with this person in my life who's going to be my significant other? And so there, yes, you can use it as a way to discover information, insights about your life. But again, as I said a couple times already, the main task is the healing. And so what we want to focus on to help direct that super conscious level of mind, that higher self, is what it is you want to work on. Because you can sort of see, like, since you mentioned the Akashic records, you can sort of see the records of your past life as if you and your buddy listening and watching remembers the Encyclopedia Britannica books. Maybe you've seen them at the library or at a garage sale for 25
all
cents.
school.
Yeah. Yeah, old school. Yeah, our old school internet back in the 70s. All the world's information in this 32 volume set of books, but it's alphabetized. And if you just randomly pick a book, you're reading about the fork. or the invention of the napkin. And it's not very interesting. But if you know that you want to research polar bears, if you know we want to look at kangaroos or aspen trees, you know exactly where to go. And so we're looking for a phrase like go back to the past life that is creating all this anger in my current life. Go back to the past life. And it can even be as general as go back to the past life that is most influencing my current life. Go back to the past life where I met my greatest spiritual teacher. These kind of things. You're looking for that key to open the right door or to get to the right book with the right life in it. And we explore that life uh, in terms of the healing or the insights you're looking for. Of course, if you lived to be 90 years in that past life, we can't explore all 90 years. That would be impossible. So what we're going to do is jump to 4 or 5 significant events in that life that have to do with the healing you're looking for, the insights or the discoveries you're looking for. Now, what's fascinating about this is time isn't linear, and according to quantum physics and the scientists, and so it's not like here's the past and here's the future and the present is right here. And so people may jump around while they're doing the past life regression. So they may start at the age of 22 and then move down to 12 and then move to 35 and then move to 18 and then move to the age of 50. And or I've had, people move through many years, many decades, starting when they were 12 and ending when they're the age of 80. I've had other people just move within the course of what seems like 3 days. So we move through 4 or 5 different significant events that is causing maybe the post-traumatic stress disorder, the anxiety, or the chronic anger, over the course of 3 days. Maybe somebody, for example, the whole issue has to do with being at Normandy Beach in World War II or something like that. So it's like this little segment of their life that's causing the issue.
Let me
And
ask you, let me ask you
sure.
here, how do you know or how do people know that they're actually going back to that past life regression? How is the how can they know that they're not making it up? That this is actually
That's a
a
good point. That's a very good point. And I guess the answer I have to give is I don't know that because I guess possibly there's two possibilities. Is one, you're looking at your real past life, or it's a metaphor being created by your subconscious mind to create healing. That's why the priority is the healing. Because I can't sign a document guaranteeing that this is exactly your past life. It might not even be your past life. It may be, I've encountered, I mean, kind of within my own life and my own experiences, seemingly needing to help part of my soul group, my soul friends, heal from a past life situation.
oh,
If I'm making sense. And
yeah,
it's a
totally.
long, confusing story that I don't
Uh-huh.
even really understand. But in terms of just thinking about it over really, like, no joke, the last 9 years since it's happened, I'm like, the only way this kind of makes sense is if it's not my past life or this other person's past life, but we are helping other people heal something that we came to this realm, this earthly realm, to help our friends heal. And we had this experience. And so maybe it's not even your past life. Maybe you're looking at somebody else's past life because you're here to help heal them. But what's fascinating about this is the brain's ability actually to gain this information. A lot of your listeners, I'm sure, and you've probably even talked about this in other podcasts that you've done, is there's a mechanism in the brain that seemingly allows you to access this information. It's called pineal gland. And pineal gland has been getting a lot of attention over the last decade or so. And it's this rice-sized piece of your brain that's kind of not real center. It's kind of like back behind center, if that makes sense. But it's about the size of a grain of rice. Mainly its main job is melatonin production. So your circadian rhythms and sleep and things like that. but it's filled with these tiny little crystals. And if you go on Google and look up pineal gland crystals, you'll see these extraordinary images of these crystals that are so small. If you were to take a hair out of your head, it'd be 1/20th to 1/100th of a micron of a human head of hair. And there's millions of these crystals within the pineal gland. And there's no evolutionary need for these crystals. They have nothing to do with melatonin production. But what's interesting about these crystals is that by applying pressure to them, they create electromagnetic field. This is why crystals can conduct electricity. That's why they're in our watches, or in our phones, or in our computers, or in all sorts of electrical devices, because crystals can conduct electricity, can even produce an electromagnetic field if pressure is applied, or some crystals can do that. That's what happens with the crystals in the pineal gland of your brain. By applying pressure through breathing techniques, we talked about breath in part one a little bit, but through breathing techniques, you can start circulating the cerebral fluid in your brain, and it moves around and starts applying pressure to the pineal gland, and there's a measurable electromagnetic field that gets created. And so, why would this electromagnetic field be necessary? And a, a study that came out a few years ago says that memory and information aren't held within the subconscious mind. This was actually produced in a journal called Frontiers in Psychology. And a great way to look this stuff up, if you're interested, is there's a subsection of Google that only researches and looks up scientific and medical research papers. It's called Google Scholar. So if you just go to regular Google and you put in Google Scholar, you'll see scholar.google.com. And it kind of looks sort of like regular Google, but all it does is look up journal articles and research papers published in journals, scientific and medical journals. So put in maybe past life regression or pineal gland crystals, or hypnotherapy and anxiety, or hypnotherapy and pain control, or whatever you want to look up. But one of the things, or you can also look at consciousness and all the research papers on consciousness. But there's a paper that was released, and maybe in the show notes, I can send you the links to these articles.
Yeah, that would be great.
Um, and they'll be in the show notes, the description underneath these links. But one of the articles, it states that information and memory is not held within the brain, but the brain is a read-write head uh, that's connecting to an omnipresent background field. And that's a fancy way of saying that the mind, or the brain, is a transmitter that brings in and distributes information to zero point field, or the field. And if you were to take an atom and you start looking at an atom with an electron microscope, and you see these subatomic particles and quarks and all sorts of things, but if you get to the essence of what an atom is, it's this vibrational field, what the Star Wars calls the force. Or there's so many different terminologies for it, but it's this energy field that binds the universe together. That seems to be where information is held. And what happens with this electromagnetic field around the pineal gland is it creates a transducer effect. Now, a transducer, well, let's do it this way. Back in the day, back in the 70s, if I wanted to watch MASH or Happy Days or Cheers or whatever TV show, I had to know that that show was going to be on, let's say, Tuesday at 8 p.m. on Channel 10. And so at Tuesday, a TV station in Los Angeles would take a videotape of that episode of Happy Days or Cheers or whatever show. They put it into their big machinery, and they would take that video, that imagery and that sound, they turn it in their transducer in their machinery and their equipment would turn it into a frequency. So that imagery and sound would be turned into frequency. They shoot up into the airwaves amongst all the other radio signals and all that stuff, and microwaves and things. And at 8 o'clock on Tuesday, I would turn on my television set. I'd turn it to channel 10, and the antennas on top of my house, or may I have those rabbit ears on my TV, would start to vibrate microscopically. You couldn't even see it, but start vibrating to the same frequency as that frequency of that show and bring it down into my TV. My TV also has a transducer, and that transducer would turn that frequency back into image and sound, and I can watch my TV show. This is what your pineal gland is doing. It's a transducer. It's turning frequency and energy back into imagery and sound. Not according to me, but according to the research papers. And so this seems to be how people, whether Akashic record readers or maybe mediums or psychics, or you yourself, the listener to this, are able to access this information by creating this electromagnetic field through breathing techniques. And if you're a fan of Joe Dispenza,
I
Dr.
was
Joe
going to say,
Dispenza,
I know exactly what history you're
that's
talking about.
exactly, yeah, that's exactly what he's doing with that breathing technique. As you're bringing it up, you're squeezing the muscles down by your root chakra, the perineum, and you're bringing that air. This is the Joe Dispenza breathing method, bringing that air up your spinal cord and into your brain to circulate the cerebral fluid to,
And then you hold
uh,
it
and to hold it, yeah.
to create that
And
pressure. Yeah.
yeah, to create the pressure because you're putting pressure on the pineal gland. And there's a big chapter about this in his book, Becoming Supernatural. And that's what he's talking about. He's talking about applying pressure to the pineal gland to create the electromagnetic field. And in the past life regression, that's what we're using to access that information. We're using that phrase, go back to the past life where I met my greatest spiritual teacher. Go back to the past life where I created all this anger in my current life. Go back to the past life that's most influencing my current life as the channel. Because if you turn your, TV to channel 8, you're not going to see happy days. You need to turn it to channel 10. Now you get to see happy days. So we're looking at that to focus the pineal gland in your superconscious, that level of mind, higher self, to access that past life. And that's when we're going to, start to jump to very significant events in that past life. Again, whether that takes decades or it just takes a matter of days, maybe. And while you're experiencing this, we're having a conversation because we're recording this and asking questions about where are you? What are you male or female? Are you a child or adolescent, an adult? What is your clothing like? What do you see around you? Can you tell me where you are, what part of the world you are, and what time you are in? We start establishing where you are, and then we can jump to different parts of that life that have to do with the healing or the discoveries you are looking for. We're going to get to the end of that life. You're obviously going to pass in that life. And this is the important part of the past life regression because this is a throwing action happens at the end of life, the moments before you pass. What are your beliefs? What are your emotions? Because that's what you can carry forward into your current life. What are your decisions about life? Was it easy? Was it hard? What about love? What about money? What about authority figures? What about parents? What about parenting? Oh, these can inform as you pass in that life and the emotions you're feeling, the thoughts you're having, the beliefs you have, the decisions you're making, the vows. Are you vowing revenge on somebody or something and carrying that into this current life? And that's right around, you know, the information we're gaining from that is what we need to understand about how what to heal. So I guess I should say you break from that body, you break from that time, and so you become soul again. And then we're going to move up into soul world, that spirit realm, that life between lives. This is the work of Michael Newton, and he has a wonderful book, Journey of Souls, and he talks about the research he did for decades about moving people in the spirit world and reconnecting with your guide, reconnecting with other soul beings or spirit beings, reconnecting with your soul group, your soul friends, this group of people that kind of grow and nurture and develop and learn, sort of like if you all meet at first grade and you move all the way up together to get your PhD. Uh, this group comes with you, not unlike maybe a regional theater group that plays different parts in the plays that you create. they come with you and play different roles in your lives. Maybe sometimes they're brothers and sisters, sometimes they're good friends, sometimes they're parents, sometimes they're, just colleagues or something. And so they play different roles for this learning and development that you're here on earth to do. So in that spirit world, not only can you reconnect with your friends, not only can you reconnect with your guide and gain information through all these experiences, the main important part is the healing. And so we make sure we have time to go to the healing space. To some people, it's energy healing. Some people, it's spiritual healing. Some people, it's a physical healing. Maybe it's with light, with energy, with water. It's maybe a laying on of hands. Maybe you're by yourself. People experience it in different ways. But that's the important part, the healing, not only in the spirit realm, but the healing that will happen in this life. You may go to a past life viewing room while in the spirit world where you can see even more past lives. And maybe there's a thread between them all, or maybe just a handful of lives that you want to see a thread that connects them all to your current life. There's this theory around people who are very masterful at certain things, sort of maybe like a musical instrument. Yo-Yo Ma, considered one of the greatest cello players of classical music. The theory would be that it took him multiple lives to get to that level of mastery. Bruce Lee, a great martial artist, took him multiple lives to get to that level of mastery of martial arts. And so maybe you see, up on whether it's a screen or a computer screen or a film or I don't know, however you're experiencing it, maybe just in your own mind, you're seeing multiple lives and how you became a master at something, how they all kind of combine together.
This is so
That's past life.
fascinating.
Yeah. But what we end with is you move to the current life viewing room. Why are you choosing this life? Is it chosen for you? Are you choosing it? Is it a plan you create with your friends? Is it a plan your guide hands to you, like a play that's already written out? Why this gender? Why this time period? Why where you live? Like for myself, I'd be asking, well, why did I grow up in San Diego? Why these parents? Why did I move to Santa Cruz? Why am I living in Flagstaff, Arizona? Why 2024? I can ask these questions. You find out about purpose. You find out about your mission, your ultimate goals. Why the hurt and pain in your life? Has there been trouble in your life? And find out why. Well, at least we'll ask the questions. Sometimes you're not allowed to know why due to the growth and development and learning you're supposed to have. I've asked somebody once, they were connecting with their soul group and they seemed to be very connected with a particular person. And I asked them, well, is that person your primary soulmate? And they paused for a minute and they said, no, I'm not supposed to know because it'll affect my learning and growth in this current life. So there's lots of questions we ask. We're having a conversation while you're in this trance state. You're able to communicate mainly for the recording, but also to kind of guide through the various parts of this work. And I'm guessing people, just through my own experience of past life regression, you're probably only communicating about, 10% or 20% of what you're actually experiencing. But we want to have this conversation, one, to move the process and the healing forward, but also so you'll have the recording and you can listen back to it or at least read the transcript of it to again gain the information because we're asking about purpose, we're asking about mission, we're asking about the hurt and pain. And this whole process that I'm describing takes 3 hours. So this isn't a short little half an hour, 45-minute thing. This is a 3 hour process. And like watching a 3 hour movie, like one of those Marvel movies that it's 3 hours long, or a Martin Scorsese movie that it's a 3.5 hour movie, you might not remember all of it. You saw the movie and you were conscious of the movie. And maybe a few weeks later, somebody say, hey, remember that scene when they're in the diner and they did this and that and said this? And I'm like, no, I don't remember that part. Oh, yeah, I guess I kind of do. So the recording and the transcript of the recording will help later on the road, whether it's weeks or months or years later when you want to return to it and remind you of the experience you had. But in the past life regression that I work with, and it's heavily based not only on the training I got at the Hypnotherapy Academy, but the work of Michael Newton and like his books, Journey of Souls or Destiny of Souls. We'll start off with just there'll be some back and forth before even the session happens. Some emails, I'll ask you questions, and just start thinking about what you want to work on. discuss what you want to work on. We'll do a warm-up exercise to kind of just release the tension and stress of the day and to kind of warm up the five senses, start warming up the pineal gland. So we'll do a warm-up exercise, show you how easy this work is to do, and you have the ability to do it. We'll talk a little bit, just kind of like we did now, about the pineal gland, to kind of explain how the mechanism of the brain and the super conscious level of mind, your higher self, how that all works together to gain this information. We'll take a quick break, maybe a bathroom break, a water break, and then the rest of the time, 2.5 hours or so is the actual past life regression and spirit world regression. And again, it seems like a long time, but it it goes really fast.
I was gonna say it goes fast,
People are
probably.
surprised. Yeah. People are surprised when it's over. It's like, oh, it seemed like 10 minutes or it seemed like, just maybe like an hour. And they, and I oftentimes don't actually watch the clock. And so we'll go maybe, you know, the whole session will be 3.5 hours or so, 3 hours and 45 minutes because, the information is so great or the healing's happening. But not only can you gain thinking of healing, this is an extraordinary story that happened just a couple months ago. I was working with somebody, and when we're in the healing space, I allow, people heal the way they need to heal, and that will come to them through their super conscious level of mind, their higher self. Maybe their guide is with them. Maybe there's healing beings there with them. Maybe they're on their own. Again, maybe it's with light. Maybe it's with energy. Maybe it's with water. It's different ways for different people and the way they need to heal. But what we always do is disconnect the cords that are attaching any sort of negativity to your current life and from past lives. And so literally pulling out the cords. I mentioned in part one, yeah, we'll pull this stuff out. Well, I want you to reach in, grab that cord and pull it out. And pull the other one out, and pull the one behind your head and behind in your low back. Start pulling cords. And so I was working with this person, and she was doing the healing work. We got to the pulling of the cords, and I let people have the time. That's another thing for the 3 hours. It's like, take the time you need to heal. We have plenty of it. Take the time you need to heal. And a couple of days later, I reach out to people, just, say, how are you doing? I check in with people, make sure they're doing all right. If they have any questions, we can talk about whatever questions they might have. And she emailed me back and she says, yeah, I cured my chronic hip pain that I've had for decades. And I didn't know she had hip pain. She never discussed anything about her hip pain.
Wow.
And she says, well, when she was in the healing place, I was talking about removing the cords that are connecting her to this life. She had had this hip pain for decades. She'd been to doctors, physical therapists. She's had MRIs. She had x-rays. There's nothing wrong with her hip. Doctors could find nothing after decades of looking at this. Doctors, physical therapists, nobody could find anything wrong with her hip. And yet she was in chronic pain all the time. So her chronic pain was gone because there was a big cord connected to her hip. She couldn't pull it out. So she had to have her guides and the other healing beings help her. So there's like her and these five other spiritual beings helping her pull it out. And it took them a long time.
During your session.
Yeah, during the session. I didn't
Uh-huh.
know it. I didn't know what
Oh,
she was doing. I
she
didn't know
didn't
she
share
had
it.
hip pain. I just knew it was taking her a long time. Have all the time you need. But there was some quiet time during it. And I reach in and just taking all the time you need, make sure the healing is complete. And when the healing is complete, nod your head and we'll move forward. And we'll have quiet time. And it was quiet time for a bit. And it wasn't, 20 minutes or half. It was like, 6, 7, 8 minutes. But when you're quiet for like 6 minutes, it seems like a long time. And but I didn't know what she was doing because she wasn't describing it to me. And it's not my business. It's her business to heal. And um, I had no idea she was working on her hip. I had no idea she was having her other guides pull it because again, the healing happens with the person. The person is going to do. I don't heal people. I don't fix people. I help guide them to fix themselves. And that was the most important part is the healing. So you not only can have spiritual healing, you can have emotional healing, you have mindset and healing, belief healing, but you can also have physical healing. And her hip pain's gone, because of this past life regression. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So powerful. Wow. I no wonder you're like so intrigued and
Yeah.
interested in learning past life regression. You really explained a lot. I had not heard the pineal gland explained before to this degree. I know you mentioned that Joe Dispenza has a whole chapter on it, but I haven't read it. I learned a lot better auditorially than reading it. So, like, it makes so much sense the way you put it. And wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll put some links down in the show notes in the description
Mhm.
with some of the research studies I was talking about and some of the photos of the crystals. And it's just fascinating what that people have been using this kind of work probably for thousands upon thousands of years. And it's just within the last decade or so that we really begin to understand why this is possible, why it can happen. A great explanation by Joe Dispenza in Becoming Supernatural. In one of the chapters, he goes in great detail about it. And but there are also lots of other information on the internet. I'm sure if you just put in pineal gland into Google, you'll get tens of thousands of pages back. But it's a fascinating time to be in, to not only be able to do this work, but kind of understand how it's happening and why it's happening.
And
Yeah.
seeing the results. I mean, that's what drives me. It's like, wow, like the results that people get when they heal is just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's fascinating. Like I was saying in the beginning of part one, is this the work I really enjoy doing because it's so fascinating, it's so interesting. Certainly there's great satisfaction in helping people heal uh, early childhood trauma and those kind of things. And I love doing that work. It's past life regression or spirit world regression. That's just it's so fascinating. I highly recommend people pick up the books by Michael Newton. Journey of Souls is kind of volume one. Destiny of Souls is volume two. He passed away in 2011, but they're still producing books. The Michael Newton Institute is still putting out books. And just real quickly about Michael Newton, what's fascinating about him, he was a psychotherapist, and in the late 60s, he accidentally regressed somebody back to spirit world. Said, now go back to the time when you needed to, whatever the suggestion was. And the person he was working with went all the way back to spirit world. And he was so fascinated by this, he said, well, I wonder if this can happen again. Is this unique or is this possible that other people can experience this? So he started working with other people, doing some research. And over the course of some years, working with hundreds and hundreds of people, he developed a protocol on how to get people back to that spirit state. As he's doing this work in the 70s, he's noticing that people are having similar experiences, even though they don't know each other. They're of different cultures, different heritages, different ages. They're having similar experiences. They're seeing the same things. They're going to the same places. They're meeting with the same people, their soul groups, their guide, the big committee of elders, and he starts experimenting with that. He starts researching that. So all the 70s, all the 80s, he's working with thousands and thousands of people, and all his research is volume one that he produced in 1991, 1992, something like that, called Journey of Souls. He then spent another decade working thousands of other people and the research he gained from that, from their experiences, he put in Destiny of Souls, Volume 2, which is twice as big as the first book. Since then, in the early 2000s, he created the Michael Newton Institute, doing more research and workshops and more books. And now the Institute is still out there. I think they released a new book last year or the year before. And it's just fascinating work. And if you're interested at all in spirit world, what quite possibly happens in that life between lives and what it's all about and what we're here for. I'd highly recommend Journey of Souls and then Volume Two, Destiny of Souls. It really kind of lays out a really cool picture of what this is all about the growth and learning we're here on Earth to achieve, so we can grow and learn in spirit world. And it's really fascinating. And that's how I base the work I do
Mhm.
is upon not only the healing that you're looking for in this current life, but also understanding the development and the learning and the growth you're here to achieve here on earth and why you're here and who's here to help you. and it's fascinating beyond belief. So probably half of the actual past life regression is past life regression. You experience that past life. You're here to discover and to create healing around. But then the other half is the spirit world. And of course, it's again different for other people. I've had people who, all right, let's go one, two, three, let's go to the next significant event in that life, and it's the death of that person. I'm like, okay, well, that was 20 minutes of past life regression. So the rest of the time we're in spirit world, you know. And so
Wow.
yeah, yeah. Again, everybody's different. And that's what's so fascinating about it. Even with the healing work of just doing hypnotherapy, like a quote unquote regular hypnotherapy session is fascinating. Watching people create healing um, is extraordinary. The
Perfect.
power we all have, even if you think you don't have it, you do. And it's pretty extraordinary. And happy to talk to anybody about this stuff. As you can tell, over the course of almost 2 hours, part one and part two. I like to talk about this
Perfect.
stuff.
Well,
So
tell us
um,
where can people go find
sure,
you?
sure. There's two places, and I have this great skill of creating complicated names for my businesses, my practices. So I live in Flagstaff, Arizona. So I named my business Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy, which is a mouthful, I know. If you just look for, if you just Google Flagstaff hypnosis, you'll find Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. The links are in the show notes. On that page, I have a section about past life regression, but I also created a different kind of branding, I guess. That I created Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy as a more clinical side of things to help people with trauma or pain control, things like that. I live real close to Sedona, Arizona. A lot of your listeners, watchers probably know of Sedona, Arizona. So it's a big spiritual center, a big spiritual community. And so there's already a lot of people doing this past life regression work, even though that's what really fascinated me. So I kind of branded myself, if you will, on the more clinical side of things, helping people with pain control and trauma and anxiety, things like that. But this work all really fascinates me. And so a few years ago, I decided, well, I'm going to set up a kind of secondary kind of practice, and I called it Divinus Arcana. Again, not the most easiest
Okay.
to spell or to remember, but I thought it was cool sounding. And it's Latin for sacred mystery. And it's
Oh, I
just
love that.
spiritual hypnotherapy. And on again, the links will be in the show notes. I don't even know how you find that on Google, but Divinus Arcana. Uh, and that's where I put a lot more information about past life regression and connect with your soul group and your guides and spirit world regression, things like that. So,
Fabulous. Well,
and
and
I'm
that's
happy to talk to anybody. Like I said, I'm happy to talk to you. Just set up a consultation call and we'll talk for half an hour about what you want to work on, whether it's more, again, more of the clinical side of things. There's some anxiety in your life, some trauma in your life that you want to heal and to resolve. We can also, talk about past life regression and so even just go to my calendar and set up a consultation call and we'll talk about what you want to work on.
perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for that.
Oh,
I
you're welcome.
really have enjoyed these
Yeah.
conversations.
Well, Valeria, I appreciate you taking the time. I know this has been a lot of your time and you got probably a lot of editing and work to do to put all these together. I've done podcasts before, so I know the behind the scenes work is quite significant. So I appreciate you not only inviting me onto your show, but having this part one and part two. It was really
Yeah, I
fun.
mean, we could not have left this part off because I'm all
Yeah.
about spirituality, but they were both, I mean, amazing information that you shared, and you just give just really so much information, so much background that I feel really gives a sense to understanding what people are getting into, and more of an understanding of like, do I really feel aligned with this, and also taking away that fear that I feels a lot of people who are not haven't experienced any of these things to actually try it, because there's like that fear of like, oh, what's going to happen to me, or like, like this like mistrust, and you really went into explaining how they work. So thank you for what
You're
you
welcome.
do,
Yeah. Thank you.
and for
It's a
sharing your
fun
wisdom.
talk with you. And yeah, it's a little bit down the line. We'll do it again, maybe.
For sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I'll see you hopefully next time.
Yeah. See you.
Okay. Bye. And with that, oh my goodness, so much information. I really hope that you are enjoying this, all of the information that he gave you, to feel safe, to feel aligned or not aligned. Let us know how you liked it, and send us a comment. Without any questions in on the comments is what I meant to say. And again, please subscribe, like, and share this podcast so that more people can find it, because it is, you know how it works, right? The more people who like it, the more people who put comments on it, that's how YouTube sends it to more people so that it can be seen and it can be found. Send you so much love. I love you, and I will talk to you next time. Bye bye.